This early in the season, are Pitt and Albany already must-wins in the Neal Brown tenure? And Pat Mcafee still thinks West Virginia is a Big 12 contender. Are they? Those are the topics. Stick around and we'll talk about them.
You are Locked On West Virginia, your daily podcast on the West Virginia Mountaineers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I think you're making Locked On West Virginia your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. What is up, guys? Welcome back in. My name is Mountaineer Paul. This is another edition of Locked On West Virginia, and I want to know, are the Pitt and Albany games must-win games for the Neal Brown tenure? Because it feels like they are, even though technically everything's still out ahead of them, even if they lose one of those games. Now, do I think they're going to lose to Albany? I do not. Do I think the Pitt is a possible loss? I do think it's possible for them to lose that game. Looking at Pitt, they looked really good in the first game, albeit against an inferior opponent. There's no doubt about that. I'm definitely not sold on Holstein, the quarterback for them. He looked inaccurate at times. But I said this on the show the other day. Pitt has really, really stepped it up at the skill position spots, in my opinion. I mean, they've got a ton of really athletic players on the Pitt offense. For me, Desmond Reed had 14 carries for 145 yards, averaged 10 yards a carry. He's number 0. He is basically he's like Jaheim White in a lot of ways. I mean, he's that shifty. He's that explosive. He's extremely dangerous. I was extremely surprised to see such a good player in the Pitt backfield and wild just to see how far they've come as an offense in just 1 year. So you can tell that Narduzzi's really put an emphasis on becoming more explosive. It was really obvious. Kenny Johnson, Sincere Lee, Gavin Bartholomew, and Kanata Muntfield, all 4 really good players. They would start most places in the ACC. So there's no doubt that Pitt has upgraded on offense. I mean, I'm not sold on Holstein. Nate Yarnell, I know, is a name that's familiar, that's been around there as their backup. But these are the numbers from Holstein. He went 30 of 40 for 336 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, look, the numbers say he did really, really well. I watched that game and see he looked off schedule quite a bit. Garrett Green wasn't much better in his first game, though. I will say that. But there's just something about Holstein. He's extremely immobile. Like, he's nowhere near even like what Aller is, at least what I saw in game 1. So I think we're going to be able to get pressure on him in this game, even though that's not technically the game we're playing yet next. I feel like obviously that's the game we're looking to, right? And which worries you a little bit about the Albany team, because could it be a trap game? It's interesting because Albany's a team that obviously played the FCS semifinal last year. They're coming off a pretty big win against LIU, and everything Neal Brown said yesterday about them is true on tape. They do play gap sound football. They do play man coverage. They do play a cover 4, which is going to invite the running game a lot. So I think West Virginia is going to be able to run the ball in that game. We better hope that West Virginia is going to run the ball in that game. And look, they didn't exactly blow the doors off of it. They scored 27 points against LIU. And a couple things about them that I found to be interesting is they've got Power 5 guys all over the roster. Miles Burkett at quarterback was a 4-star player. He's out of high school, transferred from Wisconsin, but he was only 12 of 26. But, they run the ball a lot. That's what they do. Griffin Woodell is a pretty good player, 20 carries, 85 yards, and a touchdown. Seven McGee was who I was most impressed with watching their tape. He is a downfield threat. He had 5 yards, 119 yards, and a touchdown. He's probably good enough to play in the Big 12 or ACC. As you can see here, as you go down the list, Michael Love and others, they go fairly deep at the receiver spot, which is not something you see often from an FCS team. But I wouldn't say these are elite players, but they do have depth at these players. There's 3 guys that averaged over 10 yards a catch in the game. And that's on 12 completions. So take that a little bit with a grain of salt. But they do play tough defense. LIU scored, nothing in the first or fourth quarters. What does that tell you? That adjustments. This team's a good coaching staff. Obviously, they had LIU scouted from the get-go. LIU made some adjustments and scored a couple touchdowns, but they only allowed 7 points coming out of halftime. That's really technically that's what won them the game, right? So I don't know. It's hard to say with a team like this because they've got a kid from the Seven McGee kid is from Oregon. Transferred in from Oregon. We know what kind of players they get in Oregon. The Burkett kid's a 4-star talent, like I said, out of high school. He transferred from Wisconsin. So those are 2 players most any Power 5 roster would probably like to have. While they're at the FCS, probably for multiple reasons. You could say they're looking to prove themselves again, or maybe they just wanted to be the big fish, small pond. It's really hard to say. But the main question is, are these must-wins for Neal Brown? And I think they most definitely are. You use either the next one of these games, and it's going to be incredibly difficult to block out the noise for this team. I don't think it's going to happen. I think West Virginia does win both of these next 2 games, but let's just play it 1 week at a time for now, see how they look against Albany, and see how Pitt looks against Cincinnati. That's going to be a major game for us to watch. And really just kind of monitor this as the season goes along. But it's crazy to think that after all this, Neal Brown could end back up on the hot seat again just a year after being off it. So hopefully that doesn't happen. I don't want to see that happen, and I'm not wishing for it. But it is a possibility at this point. We have to come to grips with it. It's possible. But not everybody is so out on the Mountaineers. Pat Mcafee had a couple of things to say on his show today. He still thinks West Virginia is a contender in the Big 12. Is he right? We'll go over what Mcafee said right after the break on Locked On West Virginia. This episode of Locked On West Virginia is brought to you by Ultimate Football Head Coach. Hey, West Virginia fans, I want to take a moment to give you a heads up on a brand new mobile game that I think you're going to like as much as I do. It's called Ultimate College Football HC. In this amazing game and a simulation, you get to step into the shoes of a head coach and lead your program to glory. Can you imagine actually being the head coach of an Alabama, of an Ohio State, of a West Virginia? From recruiting players and hiring coaching staff to overseeing training camps and handing school scholarships out, you control every crucial detail of your program. It's all in your hands. Will you be able to handle the pressure? And here's what I really love about the game. You're responsible for calling plays during the games. You get to put on your offensive coordinator hat, so your strategy will not only determine the success of your football team, but it'll shape the future and legacy of your program. Legacy matters. In Ultimate College Football Head Coach, it's also free. It doesn't have any ads and 100% playable offline, so you can play it on the go as you want and when you want. For Locked On West Virginia fans, use the promo code Locked On College Football, that's all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Make sure to take advantage of this perk as it will get your team off to a strong start. To download the game, just visit ultimate-collegefootball.com. That's ultimate-collegefootballcfb.com. ultimate-cfb.com. Or look it up in the app stores. That's Ultimate College Football Head Coach. Begin your coaching legacy today. And so let's check out what Pat Mcafee had to say about the West Virginia University football team.
Virginia, obviously, tough start.
Yeah.
Tough start. 2-hour delay. People aren't talking about it. There's a 2-hour delay.
Sure.
And
Yeah, they were playing well before.
Sure. They're a second-half team. They're a second-half team.
Plan was there.
Sure, West Virginia had a bigger locker room and access to the entire building during that delay.
Yeah.
And Penn State was confined to a away visitors locker room. And then they came out on the field and played better somehow than they did in the first half. And Penn State might be wagging. I ain't worried about West Virginia one bit. Okay, we didn't look great. Certainly didn't look great.
Yeah.
We were certainly outsized in a few positions. I think we're out athletic in a few positions, but the boys got a long road ahead of them.
Yeah.
And that country road is going to take us home to where we belong, and that's going to be the Big 12 championship.
Yeah.
God bless Pat McAfee. You have to love his never-ending enthusiasm for West Virginia, for our team, and although some of it's a said and jest, I get that. It's not lost on me that he's kind of halfway joking here. I do think he believes in the team too. I really does. And man, can you imagine who's going to be more insufferable than Pat McAfee if West Virginia makes it to the Big 12 championship game? Maybe nobody. I mean, we'll love it, but everybody else will hate it, So I thought that was really interesting. Is it feasible? It's going to be tough, but I think what I'm looking forward to the most is seeing what this team looks like on Saturday. I want to see them come out with hunger. I want to see them come out with drive. I want to see them dominate a team that they should be better than by a large margin. Doesn't matter if they were FCS national champions last year. I want to see them dominate that team by a wide margin, especially in the trenches where West Virginia should have a significant advantage in the trenches. They really should in this game. I'm looking forward to seeing that. There's a few things that I really want to see in this game. Number one, I want to see Garrett Green really go off. I want to see him get his mojo going, and I want to see him really get a Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year campaign going. I want to see a lot of Jaheim White in this game. I want to see Jaheim White get 10 carries for 200 yards or something crazy. Like, I want to see major production, and I want to see the offensive line dominate. That's on offense, and really at receiver. To be honest, if I wanted to see anything, I want to see 3 or 4 guys catch 4 or 5 balls apiece. I want to see everybody get involved. And then I want to see Nico Marchiol in the second half. I want to see him get significant snaps. I want to see how much better Nico has got because obviously we haven't seen a lot of him. So he deserves it, and hopefully he gets a chance to play this week. That would be great. Defense, it's pretty simple. I just want to see the team get lined up and play gap and assignment football. Just don't want to see them get overwhelmed. Want to see the linebackers play as a unit. I think they got out of position a couple times last week. It's to be expected against the Kolornicki. All in all, for them, everybody being so young on the defense, they really held up. I think one thing people isn't talking about a lot because of how the game went is how much growth I think this defense is going to have over the year. I think everybody's coming down hard on Leslie now. And while he had the horrible call to end the first half, we all know that. He admitted that he was playing towards a tendency rather than just playing it for what it was, a Hail Mary situation, which is wild and blew my mind when he said it. I understand it, but it was just that situation. I think there's a real chance that this defense could be one of the better in the Big 12. I saw some things I personally really liked in the game the other day. I know a lot of people didn't, but if you go back and watch the tape, we do have some guys that can cover now. It was just that Penn State had one receiver that was extremely explosive, and we just kind of got out of position a couple times. That's going to happen with the new secondary. That was expected. I was expecting that anyway, a couple big plays, just because it's really hard for a brand new secondary to gel like that. You can tell Aubrey kind of felt out of place at times. And so we're going to see this defense improve, guys. Believe me. I really believe that. As long as the defensive line stays healthy, I believe this can be a top 3 unit in the Big 12. We'll see. Obviously, I'm in the minority on that right now since everybody's a little bit doom and gloom. But just stick around for a little bit. I really do feel good about it. So that's where I'm standing. Tomorrow on the show, I'm going to have an Albany writer on the show, somebody that works for the Daily News. I'm trying to remember the name of the place he works for. I'll have it up tomorrow. This guy knows pretty much everything there is to know about Albany football. And we'll have him on tomorrow. He'll give us the outlook, exactly what Albany looks like, if they're a contender in the FCS this year. Everything you want to know about Albany, we are going to learn tomorrow. So be ready for that episode as well, guys. This episode of Locked On West Virginia is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Are you tired after lunch? Well, you're not alone. In fact, research shows that more than 70% of the U.S. hit a wall after lunch. Let a 5 Hour Energy shot help you leap over that wall instead of crashing into it. With zero sugar, a convenient portable size, it's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. The 5 Hour Energy website has flavors galore: watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry, and more. There's a flavor for everyone. Try them all. On the site, you even have the option to build your own 12 or 24 pack. Use the flavors, and it's delivered right to your door. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, and get 5 Hour Energy product today. You can use my promo code Locked On College Football to receive 20% off your order. The offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. This code is not good on subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. All right, guys, thank you for joining me on this episode of Locked On West Virginia. I will see you tomorrow for the Albany football preview. Looking forward to that. But before I let you go, guys, make your second listen of the day Locked On College Football. Thank you for making Locked On West Virginia your first listen today. But you really should go check out Locked On College Football's podcast, from NIL deals to never-ending conference realignment rumors. Spencer McLaughlin gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron. You can find the link to Locked On College Football in the description, so you don't need to do the research. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day.